The U.S. Senate is under pressure to follow the U.S. House and pass a series of new gun safety restrictions, but Republican senators will probably stand in the way. Now, the measures, they include raising the age to buy certain semi-automatic firearms from 18 to 21. The legislation comes after another series of mass shootings in Buffalo, New York. 10 African Americans were gunned down in a racially motivated attack. And 10 days later, in Uvalde, Texas, a gunman massacred 19 children and 2 teachers. Now, there have been more than 240 mass shootings in the United States so far this year. That is more than one every day. Uvalde, Texas is the latest in a long line of school shootings going back to the 1999 shooting at Columbine High School in Colorado. DW's Sumi Somaskanda reports.
Columbine, a name that became synonymous with anguish and terror, not just here in this community outside of Denver, but around the world. On April 20th, 1999, 2 armed teenagers went on a shooting rampage in the Columbine High School library. 12 students and 1 teacher were killed. Shocking images were beamed onto TV screens across the country, and it spurred many Americans to demand action on gun safety. Today, the Columbine Memorial sits just half a mile from the high school, a place to remember the victims and trauma wrought upon this community. Tom Mauser's son, Daniel, was killed in the massacre. He was just 15 and already worried about gun violence in the U.S.
It was just 2 weeks before Columbine. He asked me a question at the dinner table. Dad, did you know there were loopholes in the Brady Bill? Brady Bill is the national law that requires background checks for gun purchases. I said, no, I didn't know about that, Daniel. 2 weeks later, he was killed with a gun that was purchased through a loophole in the Brady Bill. How could I not respond to that? I had to.
So Tom joined Colorado Ceasefire, a group pushing for stronger gun laws. And Colorado did react, enacting universal background checks in Colorado and closing a loophole that made it easier to buy firearms at gun shows. But there is a standoff between people and politicians on gun laws on a national level. Most Americans want some restrictions, but federal lawmakers are gridlocked along partisan lines.
It's pretty clear. When you have 90% of the people supporting something, and you can't get that passed in Congress, there's really something terribly wrong.
He says he has consoled so many families who have lost children in school shootings since Columbine that he has little faith that federal politicians will act. Today, he carries a piece of Daniel with him.
That's what he was wearing that day. It's the one thing I wanted when they finally returned his belongings. He was the same shoe size as me, so to me it was very symbolic that I'm walking in Daniel's shoes.
And he will continue to walk, he says, until significant action is taken to protect lives like his son's.